So I'm doing some doylist versus battles again, and a couple people have mentioned that they don't know what the term doylist means, so I'm going to go over this again. Doylism and Watsonianism come from the tales of Sherlock Holmes. They were basically two schools of thought when analyzing characters and stories. They were answers to the question, who wrote Sherlock Holmes? Now, in the fictional world of Sherlock Holmes, Watson wrote these stories. They were chronicling his experiences with Sherlock Holmes. Outside of that fictional world, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was the one who wrote these stories. Watsonian analysis examines characters inside their world and uses that world as its limits. How did Sherlock survive a fall down a waterfall? Well, he was thinking beforehand, he had a flotation device set up, he outthought Moriarty and knew he was going to fall. That's a Watsonian take. A Doylist take on why Sherlock survived the fall down the waterfall is there were unresolved stories that Sherlock needed to be a part of, so he had to survive. It would also have been out of character for Sherlock not to survive, so his survival had to happen. If Sherlock did not survive, it would have went against the stories and themes established by Sherlock Holmes fiction. So now, let's take these two concepts and apply them to versus battles. Watsonian versus battles are the vast majority of versus battles. You examine a character's feats, you attempt to calculate them by any means necessary, you compare them, and then you say X character beats Y character. And that is a totally valid way to do it if that's what you like to do. But the history of versus battles and speculative analysis in general goes back way further than you think it does. Back to the time of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and back before that. And there has always been a second camp, the Doylist camp. And the Doylist camp looks at characters from an author's perspective. They are constrained by the types of stories and themes that they represent. Which means a Doylist versus battle has to put characters together like a puzzle in a way that their story makes sense in reference to all the other media that they've appeared in. How do these characters historically interact with other characters that are like the ones that you're putting them against? What are the morals? What are the themes that would be represented in these two characters fighting? Why are they fighting? What makes the most narrative sense for their conflict? What world are they fighting in? What makes the most narrative sense there? And the way you decide the victor is by coming up with the story that best fits both characters. Because these characters are works of fiction, so the only way that they would meet is in crossover fiction. And what you're basically doing is speculating what that crossover fiction would be like. And Doylist readings can disagree just as much as Watsonian reading. But that is the Doylist point of view on versus battles, and that's why my Doylist versus battles don't really consider feats. That's a Watsonian thing, not a Doylist thing.